Welcome to our presentation of Assessment Task 2A, the Group Artifact, presented by Larissa Skinderis and Alana Moon. Our artifact is an Asian chicken stir fry. Alana and I chose this artifact as it relates to the content descriptor in the Year 5-6 Design and Technologies curriculum, which is investigate the role of food preparation in maintaining good health and the importance of food safety and hygiene. This artifact also makes connections to many of the elaborations of the descriptor, such as healthy food practices, nutritional food choices, hygienic food preparation, and utensil and ingredient experimentation.
During this presentation, we will discuss our investigation into designing a learning artifact in relation to the curriculum that will be both resourceful and appropriate to use when teaching grade 5 and 6 students. Our artifact will aim to address the curriculum standard, the role of food preparation in maintaining good health, and the importance of food safety and hygiene. In order to tackle this standard, you need to break it down into the different key understandings under this standard that we need to try and get across. Firstly, our artifact needs to assist in explaining to students what food groups do different foods belong to, what is the different types of nutrients they contain, and how these nutrients help our body function better. By presenting this information to the students, they will have a general idea about what foods are healthy and what foods are unhealthy. Our artifact also needs to be able to cover and go over the different food safety rules and regulations that students need to follow when creating a meal to make sure it is safe and sufficient for everyone to eat, such as using a separate chopping board for preparing raw chicken. Lastly, our artifact also needs to explore and exhibit different cooking utensils and how they can be used in different ways within the kitchen. An artifact Larissa and I found fitting to address both the curriculum as well as the key understandings and knowledge was cooking a healthy recipe in front of the class to present this knowledge visually. We thought a stir fry would be an appropriate recipe to use for our example. However, we thought cooking recipes in front of the class should occur at least once a week to ensure students' knowledge is reinforced and they are taught concepts they may not understand or have forgotten. Next, we will discuss the different designs Larissa and I came up with and how we came to decide on our final artifact for this presentation. Larissa and I originally thought about creating a recipe book to illustrate the different healthy recipes children and their parents could use to eat healthy as well as discover healthy ingredients. We decided that this idea wasn't suitable as it would be too much work to have to find a range of healthy recipes and then go to all the trouble to create a recipe book in such a limited amount of time. We also found that the cookbook didn't make it clear to the students about the different nutritional values meals could have and how this could benefit their lives. The next idea we came across was cutting out different foods from a magazine and getting students to identify if these foods were healthy and what food groups they belonged to. We quite quickly realised that this was an activity rather than an artifact. We thought this idea might be more useful for the lesson plan activities in the second part of this assessment. Larissa and I then went back onto our original idea and thought about a few components we could change to make our idea work. We decided to make it less confusing and simpler by focusing on one single recipe. We then decided we needed a recipe that used healthy ingredients, had a wide range of nutritional benefits, used different cooking utensils, and required students to follow a range of safety regulations and rules. This is where we came to the conclusion of stir fry being a suitable recipe, but we had to make a few changes to this recipe to make it suitable for the classroom and make it one of our own. We decided not to use peanuts like the original recipe did, as there was a lot of nut allergies. We also decided that it would be effective if we cooked the recipe in front of the students so they could better visually understand the different parts of the curriculum we were teaching. Lastly, to make our artifact hands-on and more engaging for the students, we wanted them to help cook at different times in the recipe. For our recipe, the ingredients needed are chicken breasts, Cantonese stir-fry sauce, shredded vegetables stirred in a stir-fry packet, water and thick rice noodles. You will also need access to a bowl, saucepan, wok, knife, chopping board, tongs, and plates. We are using a recipe from the website taste.com to act as a guide for our artifact. The general idea for our artifact is to cook the chicken, vegetables, and noodles separately, then mix them all together with the sauce to create a stir fry.
To create our stir-fry artifact, a range of different tools, utensils, and procedures were used to ensure our artifact was created successfully. Throughout the process, the cooking utensils used were tongs, knives, and scissors. These were used multiple times at various points. Tongs were used during the frying of the chicken and to mix all the ingredients together in the final steps of the recipe. Knives were used to cut up the chicken and the coriander, and scissors were used to open any packaging. Equipment used included cutting boards, which were colour specific to the ingredients. A red cutting board was used for the chicken, meat, and a white cutting board which was used for the vegetables, for the coriander. A fry pan was also used, which was cleaned after frying the chicken to avoid contamination as it contained juices from raw chicken. This was done so it was ready to be used to combine all the ingredients together. The final piece of equipment that was used was a heat-resistant bowl to soak the rice noodles in boiling water. The processes used during this phase include slicing both chicken and coriander with a sharp knife on a cutting board, frying off chicken on a high heat in a fry pan, and then turning it over and taking it off the heat when the pieces were golden brown on each side. Another process was boiling water in a kettle before placing a batch of rice noodles in a heat-resistant bowl and then pouring boiling water over them and soaking them for around 4 minutes. An additional process was combining all the ingredients, the chicken, the noodles, the stir-fry vegetable mix, and the teriyaki sauce into a fry pan and tossing it over with some tongs to heat through the ingredients so it was ready to eat. The final process was moving the stir-fry into a bowl so it was ready for consumption. The overall process of completing the artifact was to cook and or prepare all the ingredients separately before bringing them all together and combining them with the sauce. Health and safety was a very important aspect that was considered during the creation of this artifact. When knives were being used, being very conscious of the utensil was essential, knowing it was sharp and you could easily cut yourself. It was important to be cautious as to where you placed your fingers when cutting the chicken or the coriander. Different colour chopping boards were also used for the chicken and coriander to avoid contamination risks, which was mentioned before. As the recipe required you to cook on an open flame with a fry pan, you needed to be conscious of the heat. This was done by making sure that the pan handle was okay to hold and not touching the fry pan where it was subject to direct heat. Another health and safety aspect that was addressed was the use of boiling water. This included pouring boiling water from the kettle carefully into a heat-resistant bowl. As the noodles were soaking in the boiling water, it was important to not touch the bowl as it increased in temperature. When you had to drain the noodles of the water, other mitts were used to hold the bowl to ensure your hands were not burnt. Here are some photos that show a summary of the process I went through to create the artifact. You can see that I washed my hands before cooking and each procedure I completed for each ingredient before bringing them together to create the stir fry. The next slide will have a video of some of the final steps of the creation of the artifact. The finished product of the stir fry does indeed fulfill the initial criteria of the original design. However, during the creation of the artifact, there are a few aspects that were considered and changed. There were a few changes to the ingredients as a result of product availability. As thick rice noodles were unavailable, they were changed to thin rice noodles. As Cantonese stir-fry sauce was unavailable, it was changed to teriyaki stir-fry sauce. The peanuts that were also part of the original recipe was also removed, as this artifact would be presented in a school setting where student nut allergies are common. Whilst these ingredients were altered, it did not impact the overall creation of the artifact, as it still came together without any hitches. There were also changes to the processes of cooking a couple of ingredients. When cooking the noodles, the original recipe said to cook them in a pot on the stove. However, after advice from someone who regularly cooks stir fries, I was shown an easier way where I could just boil some water, place the noodles in a heat-proof bowl, cover them in boiling water, and let them soak for 4 minutes. Another aspect that was changed was the recipe recommended to use a wok. However, as I did not own a wok, I used a fry pan instead. Again, whilst these things were changed and altered, it did not impact the overall creation of the artifact, as the alternative cooking methods and procedures still produced the desired result. When it came to plating the stir fry during the design phase, Alana and I had spoken of presenting on a plate. However, this was changed to a bowl, as there was a decent amount of food which would not have fit well on a plate. Whilst the artifact was fun to make and offers teachers with many discussion points and curriculum links, a constraint to this artifact is that it can only be used once. As it is a perishable food item, it can only stay fresh for a limited amount of time. If this was to be presented in a school setting, it would only be able to be present during the first lesson. However, this could be managed by having a large photo of the artifact printed and laminated so it could be displayed within the classroom. The original recipe that was used gave an indication of how long the recipe should take to complete. However, it did take longer than this time. Some variables that I believe impacted the time in which it took for the artifact to be created, although did not hinder its overall outcome, did include the change of ingredients and the experience cooking. As there was a slight change in ingredients, it may have had a slight impact on the time it took to cook. The biggest causality, however, would be the lack of experience cooking stir fries, this being the first time. It took me a bit longer to get my head around what it was I needed to do for each ingredient to bring the stir fry together. Perhaps having someone to assist me who has had experience cooking stir fries would have made the overall process shorter and closer to the time the original recipe proposed.
Overall, we were quite happy with the end product of our artifact. We connected our artifact to a number of the understandings noted under the standard of the curriculum we chose to focus on, such as introducing the children to a range of tools that can be used in the kitchen, such as a knife, saucepan, and chopping board, just to name a few. We also felt our recipe successfully identifies and encourages children to cook and eat healthy foods, such as carrot, corn, and red and green cabbage, by showing them that how healthy food can still look and taste good. Also, in comparison to the other meals we found on taste.com, like chicken schnitzel and chip, our meal is more balanced nutritionally and better for you, containing food items from the grain, vegetable, and poultry food groups, whereas the other meal consists of mainly poultry for the chicken and chips, which are nutritionally bad for you and fall under foods you should have in small amounts. However, when using our artifact in a classroom, Larissa and I would have to make sure that we do explain the benefits of eating healthy foods such as red cabbage, which contains vitamin A, which assists with supporting both your immune system and vision. This is because our artifact isn't self-explanatory in terms of health benefits, and it is more important for students to know and have a reason to eat healthy and look after their bodies. As noted, our meal being the stir fry is an effective artifact, but to ensure students can learn the variety of nutritional benefits of food, the different cooking utensils, and health and safety regulations, a number of meals need to be cooked to broaden understandings and knowledge and further encourage healthy eating. By doing this, teachers can also test if students can successfully identify and apply common knowledge and skills used in preparing past meals to when preparing new meals. This artifact can be seen as quite similar to learning tools used in food technology during high school, where the teacher models a meal and students have to copy the techniques and skills used to produce the same meal to a similar quality. Both artifacts provide students with opportunities to observe teachers' cooking meal and provide the necessary visual and written information for students to successfully model. However, food technology gives the students the actual opportunities to make the food and follow proper procedure, whereas our artifact doesn't. Lastly, this is the slide showing all our different references. I hope you enjoy listening to our presentation and learning all about our artifact. Thank you for listening.